What's up gamers, Cryptico here, and welcome back to Lowering the Mark, a show where I analyze the current and former world records of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe time trial runs to see how these records get faster over time. We'll look at elements such as the loadout, racing lines, and mushroom usage to better understand what's bringing these times down. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when my videos go live. For today's episode, we're hopping back over to the first course of the game and shifting up a gear for its faster run, Mario Kart Stadium at 200cc. On April 28, 2017, the record for this run was set at 1 minute 11.223 seconds by the American player NATO. Fast forward a few years to June 14, 2021, and the record was set at 1 minute 7.493 seconds by the French player Army. That's a 3.7 second difference between records and a 5.2% faster time. Our former world record holder NATO has broken 10 world records on this track only and has spent just over 2 weeks holding at least one world record. Our current world record holder Army has broken over 250 world records across 36 unique runs and has spent just over 1,000 days holding at least one of his 16 current world records. At pre-release, the record was slightly above 115 and it got under 111 in a matter of days, mostly thanks to NATO. A few days later, the first 109 was recorded by French player Mick. Australian player Anthony and Super Effects joined the fun and brought the record down by a few more tenths, and then Ryan 5 came along to put up this 109.4 that would stand for over 200 days. After that, a few other players stepped in and continued to bring the time down closer to 108, and 20 world records later, Japanese player Somin got the sub first and knocked off a few more tenths on his way down to a 108.6 that would last for over 680 days as the world record. In August of 2020, Dutch player Themo snapped that reign by posting a time that was nearly a tenth faster. Then Pi came along and dropped it further, and Army would be the one to pull away and drop 12 consecutive world records and dip under 108 for the first time. In total, the record was broken 63 times by 16 different players. These loadouts look different, but their performance is pretty well matched relative to some other loadout pairings that we've seen. NATO goes with a combo of Dry Bowser driving the Streetle with the standard tires and the Super Glider. Army counters with the combo of Wario driving the Wild Wiggler with the Azure Rollers and the Cloud Glider. At first glance, these loadouts look pretty close together, but after looking for more than 2 seconds, we see that each loadout has a slight advantage over the other in some specific stat. NATO leads in top speed and grip stats, while Army has the edge in acceleration, handling, and mini turbo stats. One specific I'll point out is the higher air handling stat that Army has. This will help him pull off a pretty massive time save later on. You'll see what I'm talking about later. I enjoy this course because of its simplicity and seemingly infinite room for shortcuts. It's the perfect intro course to the game as it puts the player through all forms of driving. As a time trial course, it's really interesting to watch people improve on it because of how optimized the world record has become. Let's take a closer look. NATO starts off the race with a rocket start and hops into a wide drift around the first turn. After collecting 2 coins, he'll carry this drift all the way onto this part of the grass and get the Ultra Mini Turbo to no item his way around the hairpin. After that, he just rides on down to the anti-grav section, expelling the rest of that boost. Army also hits the rocket start and drifts pretty much immediately out of the gate. He only grabs 1 coin as he carries his drift all the way to that same spot for the turn skip with the Ultra Mini Turbo. As he makes his way to S2, he'll start another drift just before going on the anti-grav. The main time save this section provides is the fact that Army went for a tighter first turn and carried the drift on a tighter line as he got the Ultra Mini Turbo over the grass. His lead already sits at 0.4 of a second going into S2. NATO hugs the inside and goes for a tight drift around this next turn. After hopping around for no reason, he starts to chain 2 quick mini turbos around these next few turns before heading down to the glider ramp. Army carries that drift up until this point before the ramp and releases it to hop over the grass and onto it for the jump boost, cutting out that first turn of S2 in the process. After starting another drift as soon as he lands, he chains 2 mini turbos together before going down the backstretch towards the glider ramp. Obviously, cutting out a whole turn with a jump boost would save you a lot of time, and that's just what happened for Army as his lead jumps up to nearly 0.9 of a second going into S3. After hitting the jump boost off the glider and flying towards the left, NATO starts drifting and uses his first mushroom to cut out the final turn by drifting between these barrels before crossing the finish line. Army also hits the jump boost, but he glides in a weird way. He bears left, angles back, uses his mushroom, and goes for a hard left motion glider strat to cut out the final turn in the air before flying across the finish line. We will definitely take a look at that on lap 2, but what you just saw was a motion glider mushroom cut. It sounds wild, and it really is, but what it isn't is useless, as Army has built upon his lead further to go up by nearly 1.3 seconds after lap 1. On lap 2, both racers start drifting on a tight line and carry it all the way to the same spot for that turn skip and ultra mini turbo. The only difference here is Army starting another drift before reaching the anti-grav section. His lead did increase by a few more tenths though, as he's now ahead of NATO by 1.5 seconds at the end of S1. Through S2, NATO just keeps to his tight lines and chains a few more mini turbos along the way before heading down the back straight towards the glider ramp to close out the section. Army starts off S2 by hitting the same no item shortcut into the jump boost, but what's different here is when he lands, he charges up another mini turbo for yet another no item shortcut, this time to cut out the second turn. After that, it's a quick super mini turbo around the hairpin before taking off on the glider. Having one shortcut in this section was good enough, but Army pulls off another one mere seconds after the first. That takes some pretty precise input, and nobody makes it look easier than him. His lead now sits at over 2.1 seconds at the end of S2. Nothing changes here for NATO as he hits the trick off the glider, bears left, and uses his second mushroom to cut out the final turn the same way he did on lap 1 when he lands. Let's slow down Army's cut here. Shortly after the trick off the glider ramp, he pauses the game to turn on motion controls. After that, he angles his kart in such a way that he can immediately whip it for a hard left and use his mushroom to keep the speed up as he makes this, I guess we call it an air shortcut. This is why having that edge in air handling was so important to Army. Without it, this cut would be even more difficult to pull off as lesser loadouts lack the maneuverability that his does. After crossing the finish line, his lead now sits at just under 2.5 seconds after outsplitting NATO's lap by 1.2 seconds. On lap 3, both racers started off the same way by carrying their mini turbos up to the turn skip before heading on to the anti-grav section. NATO does it like you'd expect, while Army hits not one, but two no-item shortcuts off nothing more than a normal mini turbo. Once both racers come off the glider, NATO does nothing more than a jump boost and cut through the last turn on land, while Army does it in the air via a completely exaggerated motion glider. Coming across the line, Army would post the winning time that was over 3.7 seconds faster than NATO's former world record. So by taking better lines, skipping more turns, and hitting a motion glider that somehow saves more time than cutting out the last turn on land, Army was able to cap off his 12th consecutive world record to finally get under 0.5. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite feeling it at Q&A this time around, so we're just going to jump ahead to the best known splits. The best known splits for this run show that Army's world record splits are incredibly close to the best known laps. Despite not owning all three of them, his world record laps are no more than 4 frames off of them, with his lap 3 being the best known split. 7 to 8 frames altogether can be theoretically knocked off if Army were to string together 3 near perfect laps. Or perhaps there's someone else out there that would be the one to do it. The worldwide top 10 consists of 4 national and 3 continental record holders. Army sits at the top, just over a tenth of a second back is American record holder MKS for Life, and in third place is Vincent. 4th through 7th place share just under a tenth of a second in separation and include players such as the Spanish record holder Alberto, American player Albert, Xylix, and Genzua for admin. Rounding out the top 10, separated by even less time, is Italic, Grant, and the Canadian record holder Eternal X. This is Army's longest lasting world record on this run, so it's probably safe to assume that it is pretty strong. MKS for Life is close, but there's really no way to tell if he's closing in on Army's top time. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's the end of episode 59. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you weren't aware already, the season 6 finale also dropped today, so be sure to check out episode 60 when you're done here. If you enjoyed this video, like and share it with your friends and comment on which course you'd like me to analyze next. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.